What's going on, guys? Today we are back, and today we are talking about everything you need to know about Lunchbox Lockers. A lunchbox locker, also known as an automatic locker, drop-in locker, pocket locker, is a form of automatic locking differential, designed to drop right into your carrier, replacing some of its components with some from the lunchbox. Now, when people ask me what the first modification they should do when they're seriously getting into off-roading, I always say, easy. Lunchbox locker in the rear. And if I was to go back in time with what I know now, that is exactly what I would do with my own truck. But in fact, I did the solid axle swap before I was even into the locker game. And let me tell you, that solid axle doesn't mean anything if you can't get traction to begin with. And a rear lunchbox locker is actually a relatively simple mod, and is well before the point of diminishing returns when it comes to bang for your buck off-road capabilities. I've been running a lunchbox locker in the rear of my 1989 Toyota pickup for a couple years now. And let me tell you, it is fantastic. I had it both times I went to Moab, Utah, and it grips to the rocks perfectly. And at home, during the winter, this locker works wonders cruising through the snow. And in case you guys are curious, I put an Amazon link to the exact locker I'm running in the description below. And moving on, how does a lunchbox locker even work? It's pretty straightforward, actually. It's a mechanical locking unit that lives right in the carrier of your existing differential. And by default, the locker is in sort of like a ratcheting position, but as soon as you apply torque, it locks up. And the really cool part is, when you come into a corner and you let off the throttle, the mechanism, the locker will actually unlock, allowing the tires to turn separately of each other, kind of like it does with an open differential. D&E in the garage actually has a really good video explaining how these lockers work, and I'll leave his video in the description below. Now let's talk about some of the negatives of lunchbox lockers. The unlocking motion isn't necessarily smooth, and occasionally you can actually hear and feel it unlock. And sometimes as the locker locks or unlocks, it'll make a really loud noise like parts broke. But really it's just the locker. But this noise is a rare occurrence, and when it happens, you'll know what it is. Also, sometimes the locker doesn't actually free up when you go around corners, and you'll hear the tires chirping all the way through, meaning you will actually have a little bit more tire wear than you would if you had an open diff. The installation of these lockers is actually really straightforward. With the third member removed from your rig, separate the carrier, remove the spider gears, and the lunchbox locker will sit right in their place. I kind of made a video on this a couple years back, and if you guys want to check it out, it's linked in the description below, but it doesn't really go into much of the details of the install. And the number one reason why I recommend these lockers over everything else is the price. You can find the exact locker I'm running, a Powertrax Lock Right locker for the Toyota 8-inch V6 carrier, for $275. And if you compare that to like an air locker, which you need a locker and then you need an onboard air system, you're looking at over like $1,000 easy. And I can already hear the comments. Clinton, what about a spool? It's even cheaper, and it doesn't make any weird lock-on-lock noises. And you're right, it is cheaper, but have you ever ridden in a rig with a spool in the rear? Especially on the street. Every corner, the rear end is hopping and chirping the tires away. What you save in buying a spool, you'll easily lose in tire wear if you plan on driving this rig on the streets. For example, if you guys have been around the channel for a while, you know of the 1993 budget build series, you know, Corey's blue Toyota pickup. He has the exact same tires as me. The only difference is his are a year older. But because he daily drove the truck for a little bit, our kilometers are about the same. But if you look at his tires, his are significantly more worn down than mine. All because of his spool in the rear versus my lunchbox locker. Long story short, Corey is planning on tossing the spool and putting in a lunchbox locker eventually. Guys, if you like this video so far, please remember to give me a thumbs up. And hey, if you're new here, if you don't mind subscribing, we do off-road content, you know, adventuring, build-ups, modification videos, and we'd love to see you around. How about running a Lunchbox Locker up front? Now, I can't speak to this personally because I've never had this setup, but for the sake of the video, I've asked around. I know a few people who do run Lunchbox Lockers up front, and this is what they have to say. You guys might remember Skylar, my friend with the diesel swap Toyota pickup. Well, he runs Lunchbox Lockers front and rear in his rig, and this is what he has to say about running it in the front. Obviously, they aren't as nice as something selectable, but for the price and simplicity, I'd say they're well worth it. In the snow, they like to push through the steering a bit, but if you throttle it out, it seems to grab. Not a big complaint from me. Basically, to sum it up, auto locker in the back, a thumbs up. Auto locker in the front, cheap and better than open. Thanks for the information, Skylar. On Instagram, I got a message from Patrick, and he told me if you daily drive your rig and use 4x4 in the winter, snow and ice can be really sketchy with an automatic locker up front. So that is something to keep in mind. On the topic of daily driving these lockers, is it terrible? Absolutely not. You barely notice these lockers, especially on the highway. I drove my truck all the way from my home in British Columbia, Canada, all the way down to Moab, Utah, and back, a 3,200 kilometer journey with no hesitation whatsoever. Sure, it's got its little quirks and noises from time to time, but the benefits you gain from having this locker off-road well make up for the minor setbacks you might experience driving on-road. That being said, if you want something that performs like stock on-road, but you still want the locking benefits, an air locker, an e-locker, or even an LST are probably your best bet. Overall, I totally recommend Lunchbox Lockers in the rear of your rig. Simple, cheap, reliable, traction. And it doesn't even scrub down your tires that fast. What more could you ask for?
Oh my God.
Once again, I've linked the exact locker I use in the description below if you're interested. Anyways guys, that about wraps up this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Don't forget to check out the contest we're running in last week's video. We draw the winner for that next week. Anyways guys, if you like this stuff, please remember to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. Anyways, we'll see you next week. Peace.